Welcome back to Living Well Podcast. I'm Michelle Martone. It saddens me to let you all know I had to cut my trip in India short due to illness. I'm now back home after 9 days of a fever over 103, headache, terrible body aches, diarrhea, convulsion-like shaking from chills. Long list of symptoms. I don't need to go through all of them with you, but I was very ill. I've been on antibiotics and I'm slowly getting better and getting my strength back. But in this episode, I'll share with you my honest experience of being there. I'll start from my first day at Vaidyagrama. I shared with you all that it was over 105 every day there, and it really didn't cool down at night. Even once the sun set, you would expect it to kind of cool off, but it never did. It was just brutally hot the entire time. And the water situation was not great. It was so remote that the possibility of walking to a shop to buy bottled water it wasn't happening there. It was too remote of a place, so the water was being boiled. And then also they were adding some pink powder to the water, like a dark reddish pink powder that was supposed to be antimicrobial, an Ayurvedic powder to also help with the taste, but I was having a terrible reaction to it. Like every time I would put that water to my mouth, my head would automatically kind of turn the other way and my body would recoil a bit. But that was the only option. It was either drink that water or continue to just get more dehydrated, which I did. Even though I was drinking it a little bit, even though my body was giving me that clear signal, stop drinking this water, there was no other option. And when I asked if maybe we could hire a driver to go into town and get us water, it was such an ordeal. They told me this is Ayurvedic water and it's a blood purifier and it's good for my health. Even though I explained I'm having a bad reaction to it and I don't think I should be drinking it, it just wasn't a possibility to go out and get bottled water. So I had to continue drinking this water. I really wasn't feeling great. I wasn't getting good sleep there at all. But I was seeing all these people around me that were having an amazing time. There was even another group of people who were there on retreat, and they got up and they said such wonderful things about how transformative the experience was for them, what an incredible time they had, and they learned so much and had such wonderful healing experience there. And I was sitting there just wanting to feel that, wanting to have that same experience. But inside, I was starting to feel sick already. I was starting to get very confused and dehydrated and just agitated. Of course, I was overheating already at this point. I'm starting to get a fever, but because it's 105 outside, you're pouring sweat thinking, okay, well, it's just because it's hot, but it wasn't. I was starting to have a fever and developing toxicity from the water. And I kept walking around. There was a festival happening this weekend at the center. So I was attending the festivities. They had this folkloric dance and music, things that I normally just love and fill my heart. And these are the reasons that I enjoy being in India so much. But I was sitting there seeing all these things that normally fill me up, but I was feeling terrible inside, looking at everybody enjoying, wanting that to be my experience, but it wasn't. So I kept thinking, what is wrong with me? And I hadn't figured it out yet. Then I sat down with one of their doctors just for study, to learn, to ask questions about Ayurveda and just to have a discussion. And as I'm listening to him talk, my head is just spinning and I'm feeling so confused. So I asked if we could just stop and get water. So I sat for a bit, had water. We continued our session. And when I went back to my room, I was so dehydrated at this point. My body couldn't produce sweat anymore. I hadn't been urinating for maybe 8 or 9 hours because I was just so dehydrated. My body couldn't lose water through urinating or through sweating. So the only way I could cool myself down was to keep jumping in the shower. So throughout that whole night, I never slept. Every 10 minutes, I was throwing myself into a cold shower, sometimes with my clothes on, just so when I laid back down, I would still, try and cool down because I was wet. And I spent the whole night kind of in panic doing that, to be honest. And the very first day that I was there during my yoga practice, I had this, not just a vision, but a feeling of these like white angel wings wrap around me. So intense that I stopped my practice and I got down on my mat into child's pose and I just stayed there very still, feeling these, what I could describe as like angel wings around me. Now, after the fact, seeing everything I went through, it was absolutely like a vision of protection, kind of like a premonition. I was about to go through something very intense, but just to trust I would be okay in the end. So back to this night where I'm jumping in and out of the shower. In the middle of the night, I wrote through WhatsApp to kind of the point person there that was helping me with things, and I told her, I think I'm having a heat stroke or some kind of really bad reaction. I need to leave in the morning. And so when maybe 5 a.m. came around, I couldn't stay in that room anymore. I got a cold, I got a scarf and soaked it in cold water, wrapped it around my shoulders, my neck, and my head to keep myself cool. And I went out. Honestly, I was just like pacing. I was so uncomfortable. I had to get out of the room and move a bit. So I went to the temple on the property and tried to sit there for a bit. I walked around the temple a couple times. And then I went to the woman's room that was my point person, and I told her I needed to get a cab, go to the airport, and go home because I was having a terrible reaction. I asked to get my temperature checked, my blood pressure, my pulse. Nobody ever came. So I made the decision in that moment that the best thing for my health was to leave there and come home because I wasn't getting the care that I needed. So I was able to call my husband. He helped me rearrange my plane tickets. So in a complete panic and daze and confusion and high fever, I packed my things, got in a taxi, went to the airport, still with this scarf I kept dunking in cold water wrapped around my head and my neck. So I looked, I'm sure, very odd going through the airport, half my clothes soaking wet from this rag, and me in a total daze. So I made it from Coimbatore back to Delhi that day, stayed in a hotel that night, and the next evening was able to catch a flight home from Delhi to San Francisco. And if I would have waited any longer, I never would have been able to make it, because by the time I get home, Then the diarrhea set in, and the temperature just kept raging. I was able to get water, so now I'm able to sweat again, and in between cold, chills, and feverish sweating, this goes on. I got my blood drawn. I sent in a stool sample. We happened to have a friend who was coming here at this same time, and he really did me a solid and took my stool sample to the second floor of Kaiser. God bless him coming here thinking he was on vacation, but instead he ends up jockeying my stool sample from Pescadero up to San Francisco to the hospital. And in the end, I have E. coli and Campylobacter. So I've been on antibiotics. Last night was my last dose. Slowly, I'm feeling better. I won't be able to go back to teaching for a while. I still feel very weak and get fatigued easily walking from one place to the other, but I am getting better. Why things happened the way they did, I have no idea. All this time I've spent in bed, I've been reflecting on the trip, and the insight that I have so far is that I was going on the trip seeking something, seeking some kind of validation outside of myself, like some teacher to tell me something or some certificate to prove that I learned something. And all of these retreats and workshops and teachers, there's great utility and it's wonderful up until some point. And then at some point, the greatest teacher is really your life itself. And at some point, we have to bring all of these lessons and teachings to life through the light of our own experiences. And I saw people there having wonderful experiences, and I wanted that. But unfortunately, that wasn't my experience this time around. But what I did experience is a quenching of my thirst. Like my need for searching and seeking for answers from outside of myself feels done for right now. I feel complete and whole and content, and I don't need to search for anything outside of myself, any validation from anyone else. I feel very settled at this point. And I'm sure that will change in the future once I'm recovered and I've been doing the day-to-day grind for a while. I'm sure I'll get a little bit itchy, a little bit antsy again, feeling like I need to go somewhere and figure something out. But for now, that's not the case. I feel very grateful for the life that I live and the lifestyle I have with my husband, who's been taking such incredible care of me since I've been home, making my food, cleaning up the room, cleaning the house, bringing me electrolytes, bringing me coconut water, making ginger tea. He's been really an angel. And our friend Austin as well, who happened to be here, made some khichdi, which is a mix of lentils and rice, and that's been helping bring me back to life. So while I didn't have the experience I was expecting being in India, I maybe in the end am left with even a better feeling of being really content with the life that I live, with my job, teaching people, and our home here in Pescadero and our garden. I feel very content and full and whole. Like I don't need anything more to be happy. So I look forward to seeing you all again once I'm feeling better and able to be back in a warm room teaching yoga for an hour, but for right now, that's not something I'm able to do. But I look forward to seeing you in the future, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.